All right, the 8 a.m. update is in from the National Hurricane Center. We want to bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross to hear his take on the update. Brian, obviously you're king when it comes to these tropical systems. Not a whole lot has changed with the storm, although the pressure went up. So I guess technically that indicates weakening, although maybe this is more of kind of a leveling of Melissa.
Yeah, for now, although all expectations are that the intensification process will continue and that this will turn into a Category 5 hurricane and then make its move back up toward Jamaica. But all this is happening slowly. So once it makes its move toward Jamaica and then the weather really starts deteriorating over the island, it's going to be nasty and dangerous for an extended period of time. We'll look at that here in just a moment. All right, so there's the latest from the hurricane hunters out there, 140-mile-an-hour winds. Category 4, solid Category 4. And when you look at the satellite picture, you can see that this, even though the pressure has gone up a little bit, the actual development of the storm has increased. We'll see that when we look close up here in just a moment. Moving now west at 5, so it is taking that path that we talked about yesterday, that slow path beneath Jamaica, far enough offshore that the core is well offshore. There are not strong winds right at the coast in Kingston or anywhere like that. And there's the pressure number that we're going to watch. We expect that will go down some more later on today. All right, look close up here now and watch the eye. And what you're going to see is it starts out a little cloudy and then it clears up. So there, it's clear. Now let's go back. See, cloudy, 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 and then clearing up. When you see the eye clear up like that, that's a sign that all the mechanics are working in the storm, and it's the air is descending in the eye and pushing the clouds away, and it's just operating kind of on all cylinders to be able to do that. And it does that before it ends up getting stronger, becoming a Category 5. So as I said, right now, the core of it down here is offshore, but the idea is this is going to come up and then make kind of a hard right somewhere into the southern coast, and where exactly into the southern coast makes a tremendous difference. So this is the size of the area of strong winds now. Now, the yellow means 40-mile-an-hour plus winds somewhere in this quadrant. So if you divide the storm into quadrants like this, what it's saying is somewhere at that radius, you can expect winds to be 40 miles per hour or higher in the yellow area. When we get down to these areas, this one is hurricane force gusts, and then this smaller one here is hurricane force winds. So you can see that the hurricane force winds are still way offshore, but this is just a developing storm. It's not a very big hurricane yet. But this tells you that at the higher elevations, the winds are going to start gusting. Not so much down at the surface, not so much hidden in some of those mountains, but at the higher elevations where they're exposed, the winds are going to start gusting in the eastern parishes of Jamaica. All right, let's go here and look at the cone from the Hurricane Center and what the expectation is. And there you see it. The idea is that by tomorrow morning, and when it says in the morning, it means overnight. So overnight tonight, like 2 a.m. Eastern time nominally in the morning, expected to be a Category 5 and continue that through the day today. That's in the afternoon as it begins its move toward Jamaica. Now, during this time, there's no guarantee it's going to stay at one intensity, because very often you get what's called an eye wall replacement cycle. That may lower the intensity, but that's not really good in some sense, because it also expands the storm. And the bigger the storm is, the more storm surge it makes, and the bigger the area that it affects. And that'll be important here when we look a little farther down here. All right, so there we are. This is tomorrow afternoon nominally in this area, beginning to make its turn to the north. Okay, let's go through the day here, and you see that the expectation is maybe a little weakening, but still an extremely strong Category 4 or 5 hurricane approaching overnight tomorrow night the southern coast of Jamaica. So that's what that Tuesday a.m. means. And that's the Hurricane Center's estimate of what the various sizes would be. So here you can see up here the tropical storm force winds way bigger than the island, much, much bigger than the island. Hurricane force gusts about the size of the island, almost maybe 80% or so covering the island. And this is a hurricane force sustained wind. Now, what's important here is there's the hurricane center track for the center of the storm, and their estimate for the hurricane force sustained is just about to the Kingston area. But if we go through an eyewall replacement cycle and the storm expands, weakens but expands, that can expand this out and put more water into Kingston Harbor and so forth. It becomes actually more dangerous along the coast. The peak winds might be less, but still very strong, and more storm surge and conceivably more rain as well. All right, talk about rain. Here you can see the forecast based on the European model. Now, this is the idea that, like the Hurricane Center, the center is coming in here. So the core of the rain, and you can see this is up in the 3 feet range here, is coming in there. If the center comes in over here, then that's more likely to be just to the right of the center. But all these amounts, look at the dark reds over in here. So this is up in a couple of foot range. So the Hurricane Center is estimating up to 3 feet plus or minus, maybe 40 inches in some isolated places here. So extreme rainfall. And if it rains on the mountains, that has to go downhill. For example, look at these tall mountains here to the northeast of Kingston. So the moisture comes in, hits those mountains, and then it's all downhill, and it has to get through the city, has to get whatever, through the towns or the villages or whatever they are, and it has to get to the coast. So this is why this is so incredibly dangerous, not to mention mudslides coming down the hill. Let's take a look at the other issue. Now, so we talked about the wind, we talked about the rain. Now the storm surge. If the storm makes landfall where the Hurricane Center is saying right here, now you're talking about storm surge on this south coast. Their forecast is for up to 13 feet above normal high tide. But let me add this, somewhere in that area, because it really depends on where the landfall place is. It won't be all the way on that south coast, but if it makes landfall there, that 13 feet is probably right in here. If the landfall is farther over a little bit, within the noise, we don't have that ability to forecast. Now you're talking about the worst of it coming into Kingston Harbor here. So a little deviation makes a tremendous difference where that peak storm surge is. And everywhere that's open to the south is going to have more storm surge anyway. So the 13 feet takes into account all of that, up to 13 feet above normal high tide. Not above the normal tide, above the normal high tide. That's how high it could get. And right in Kingston Harbor, I see this causeway out here. That's the Kingston International Airport right there. It's 10 feet above sea level, but sea level is lower than high tide. So it's not, if it's 13 feet, then that's all the way through this airport. Or even if it's 10 feet above normal high tide, that's all the way through this airport. So this is probably going to get cut off here. It's going to get cut off because there's no road. It could be damaged unless they get super lucky and the storm is far enough west that the push of water into Kingston Harbor is not that bad. This is going to be very bad for the airport. There's another area up in here which is very vulnerable to storm surge. So you have Kingston over here. This is Kingston, and this is Portmore, which is a big suburb of Kingston, essentially. And in between, it's this very marshy area, and it's a drainage area. And here you can see right in there, that's the drainage canal that comes out of Kingston for all the drainage. And you can make it out in here. I think you can make out that line there. That's called the Sandy Gully. And this, the name of that gully escapes me. But in any case, that's how they drain the city. That's how they get the water through the city, through these big gullies. And it all comes out right there. Well, if the storm surge is coming in and pushing in against that, it can't drain. So that's a significant threat there. And this is prone to flooding. And the wastewater plant right there is also prone to being rendered inoperable. That's the wastewater plant for, I don't know how much of Kingston, but it's a big wastewater plant. So all these daunting issues coming for the capital there. All right, in terms of the rest of the rain around the region, continuing on the south coast here, this is now from now through Wednesday on top of the foot or two of rain that they've had there. And here you see the path all the way up over eastern Cuba and into the Bahamas. And there you see the cone diminishing as it goes to the north some. And Bermuda is going to have to watch it here toward the end of the week. So a lot going on, guys. Daunting for Jamaica. I mean, we just hope that somehow it finds a path through that country that avoids at least a significant part of the population, but that's not clear this morning.
Yeah, I think you said it best. A bunch of daunting issues coming for Jamaica, specifically Kingston. Brian Norcross, thank you for that insight. We appreciate it.